Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Beekeeping for Newbies. Thank you very, very much for taking the time to listen today. I do appreciate you. And as always, feel free to reach out, Jeff, at beekeepingfornewbies.com. It's NEWBEES.com. Well, today we've got episode 142, Swarm Prevention, Keeping Your Bees from Leaving. I'm laughing because there was something else that I had thought of to add to the end of that. And then I thought that's probably why you don't grow your audience is by making smart comments like that. So I'm not going to make the comment, but message me directly on Discord and I'll tell you what I was going to say. Okay, so welcome back. I want to give a special thanks to my girl Whitney Houston for today's warm-up song, I Will Always Love You. Fun fact, the video for the song was taken from the movie The Bodyguard with Kevin Costner and Whitney. I went and saw that at the theater 2 times with my then-girlfriend Kate. Good times back in the day there. Oh, and I also used to have a dog named Winnie that I used to sing this to, and she would just absolutely go crazy years ago. She was a good old girl, good old dog. But it is Friday, and I was going to play Rebecca Black, It's Friday, for you today. But unfortunately, when I syndicate to YouTube, they'll flag me for copyright violations, which we don't want that to happen. So be sure to listen to that today to get you pumped up for the weekend. But this has been some pretty crazy spring weather lately. I'm between the cold, the rain, the tornadoes, the snow, like everything, like the Mackinac Bridge up in Michigan. I saw like a picture of it, like just completely like this big, massive icicle. I know Kelly from our Discord room lives up there, and not up there, but up in Michigan. She was talking about all the bad weather, power outages, bunch of snow. So my heart goes out to all you folks up there who are dealing with that. Oh, a little fun game you can play too with the Michigan folks if you know them. Call it the Mackinac Bridge because it's actually spelled that way, even though they pronounce it Mackinac. So call it Mackinac. They love it. You go, I don't know. There's a C at the end of it. They really like that. The other one they like to get up on, a quick sidebar here, is just a small town boy born and raised in South Detroit. They like to go, well, South Detroit, that's Windsor, Canada. No, that's south of Detroit. That's like saying I live in South Texas. Oh, you mean Mexico? No, South Texas. I get in this debate all the time with Michigan people. Anyway, sorry for my getting completely derailed. But today, it's all about swarms. It's all about keeping those bees where they need to be. I've been keeping the swarm cam up full time whenever I'm on the laptop. It's been so cold lately, I haven't seen a forager even drop by, looking for a snack or anything in at least 3 or 4 days. So hopefully this weather will break here and we'll see some action. I'm pretty sure that we're going to get cooking with things here this coming week. Couple quick reminders here. Check us out on YouTube. It's just youtube.com/@Beekeeping for Newbies. We got the Discord room is linked off the Beekeeping for Newbies homepage. We've got nuke plans, swarm trap plans. I've got the link in there for the bestbeekeepinggear.com. We just added some stuff on Varroa. Today I'm adding detailed treatment plans for oxalic acid and Formic Pro, HopGuard, Apivar. So we're going to be getting that updated over the next couple of days. So I'm just trying to really take a lot of the topics and things that we discuss in the Discord room and kind of incorporate that into a full-time kind of online repository. So that's what's going on a lot with that bestbeekeepinggear.com site. But there's also things in there with some gear that I actually use and links to it and all that. Okay, now we need to get to the real stuff here. So why do bees swarm? What is this? Most of it has to do with you. Usually it's their feelings towards you and they probably don't like, it's not you. It's got nothing to do with you. So this is just like everybody is genetically hardwired, every living organism is genetically hardwired for reproduction in one way or another. If you can't make more of yourself, then you kind of don't have much of a biological purpose. Not taking anything away from your spiritual purpose or anything like that. But as is hard-coded in the bee's DNA, they have to find a way to reproduce. So there are things that trigger this. And I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today is things that we can do to kind of mitigate and adapt to the potential triggers and hopefully reduce the risk of them swarming. I think before we really dive in and start talking about all of the aspects of swarming and the technical components of it and the whys and wheres and hows, I want to tell you about why swarming is bad. Now, there are certain things that we all just kind of know that are just kind of intuitive, but some of those things are things that you know, but you don't necessarily think about. Like, as a swarm leaves the hive, you're an experienced beekeeper or a beekeeper who's been doing this for a little while. You're like, oh boy, there goes a swarm. And you're like, no big deal. it happens. It's not the end of the world. The colony can recover. I guess, you've naturally reduced the population a little bit. And I guess that'll reduce their tendency to swarm. Don't necessarily think you're out of the woods yet, though. Sometimes they can swarm 2, 3, 4 times back to back. But the thing I want you to think about first is think about this from like a neighbor's standpoint. Let's say you're in a suburban, hopefully not like an urban area. That could make it even more challenging for you. But if you're in a suburban area and you have bees swarm, it can scare people. Like, people really get a little weird about this. And I mean, I guess it's hard for me to step back to when I didn't know better. Like, I think if I saw a big swarm flying by and knew nothing about bees, and I only heard like the horror stories online, of how a swarm of bees attacked a bunch of people, I feel like I could get a little nervous or scared about that. And I think that there are a lot of people out there who would be pretty bothered by seeing that. So that's just one aspect, right? Just being considerate of your neighbors and people who might potentially be in your area. Now, aside from that part, there's the impact to the colony. Now, let's just use the unit of measure of 100. We'll just say 100. And your colony swarms, so your population measure of 100 is now, let's say, 55. Well, you're going to have a very quick ramp up or a re-ramp up. That colony, you're still in a nectar flow. The colony already has a bunch of capped brood. You're going to have a new queen emerge probably within a few days. She's going to take about a week or so to get mated and come back and start laying. But you might have, a 7 to 10 day break. But you're still in the peak of the really, honestly, the beginning for me particularly. If I had a swarm that happened, let's say today, April 11th, I would have a mated queen laying again by the 18, 19, 20, something like that. So let's say by the 20th, she's laying again. So what do I have, a 10 day break in the cycle there? That's okay. I mean, we have a big flow. We still have a good 5-6 weeks of flow left. So the impact to your primary colony it's not going to be the end of the world. Now, it is going to have an impact on your honey production. If you wanted to produce a lot of honey and you take your population from 100 down to 55, or 60 or whatever that is, that's going to make a big impact. You're going to lose a lot of productive bees. And you're losing them at the time of year you need them the most. And for me, like I said, by the time you get to about the first week of June 6, 7, 8, 10, something like that, our flow is pretty much over. So if you wanted honey that year, you've got to already have it by then. And that's one thing that swarming can really have a huge impact on. But the other thing I want you to keep in mind, or at least be cognizant of, is let's say that this colony swarms, and I'm not sure if you can hear, I hear this bird in the background. He's been yelling at me all morning, so hopefully it's not too obnoxious for you. But when that colony swarms and they leave, they've got nothing other than what they can carry within their gut, on their exit flight. They're going to land somewhere, find a new home, and maybe they start settling in on, let's say, April 15th if they swarm today. Now they've got to start drawing comb. And that little cluster is basically like a package of bees. That's almost exactly what you're getting with a package of bees. Now, fortunately, most swarms tend to be a bit larger than you get in a package, but still, you're not going to get any replacement bees for over 3 weeks. And where I am, when you've got probably 7 more weeks of flow, that's probably not enough time. What that will get them is that will give them time to draw up a lot of comb, get some replacement brood in place, replace all the aging workers out, get some new foragers in. But what they're not going to have is they're not going to have 20 or 30 pounds of honey to get them through the summer dearth. They're not going to have the 30 to 40 to 50 pounds of honey they may need to get through the winter. Of course, depending on where you are, that could be twice as much as that. But there are a lot of things that really, really get messed up. That new colony where I am, that swarm, is really kind of set up for failure and doomed. I would say probably single digit, less than 10% of them actually survive, just surviving that first season based on the swarming aspect of it alone and starting that new colony. But now they're feral. Now they're out in the wild. Nobody cares about their varroa. Good chance that colony is going to be dead. Like, there's a guy in our Discord room named JT, and JT was telling me, some of the people, that he knows have recommended to just let the bees swarm. Like, don't even manage it, just let them swarm. So let's talk about that real quick before I go into, a lot of my notes. So you're basically taking a 100% hands-off approach to management. I mean, now if you're treating for Varroa, okay, it's a 90% hands-off approach. So we've talked about all of the reasons why that's bad, but what else are you doing? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? What is your goal with beekeeping? So you clearly don't want to expand because you don't want to capitalize on the free bees you have. You're not really concerned about neighbors or anybody else. You have very little concern for the overall well-being of honeybees, as a species, because if you care about them, you're going to find a way to treat them and take care of them. This is kind of like just cutting loose some cattle and being like, go, be free. It's one thing to free range your cattle and let them graze and then bring them back in and take care of them and make sure that their hooves are in good shapes and their eyes and ears and digestive system and vaccinations. If you do that, all these things need to be in place. Your bees are the same. It's animal husbandry. You got to take care of them. You have an obligation to do that as the caretaker of as the beekeeper of those hives. All right, so let's get into why bees swarm. Like, what is this? Like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of like hardwired into their DNA, but what's the actual trigger for this? It's really kind of a combination of factors. Now, on the surface, just very, very generically, people will always kind of point to crowding. Well, the bees are very crowded. There's a lot more bees in the same amount of space. They're very healthy. They're strong. Big flow is on. And everything just comes together for like a biological perfect storm. But what's the actual trigger of this? Now, you've heard me mention it before, but we're going to, again, a lot of this stuff is going to be new to some people, old to others, but great things to kind of reinforce. They will bring back resources, and they have a plan in place for where they like to put those things. When that space is not available or it is full, they go to the next available spot, the alternate. So you have primary, secondary, tertiary, that kind of thing. When they start getting into the brood chamber, that's when we start running into some challenges. That space is reserved and dedicated for the queen to lay her eggs. When they start backfilling now, it is very, very normal for there to be a little bit of food kind of on the edges. That's what the nurse bees are using to actively, feed, to make the royal jelly, to feed the young larvae. So they do need that. But when they go into regular brood space and they're backfilling it with nectar, pollen, and other resources, that's very problematic. Now, we mentioned that there's the brood pheromone. When the foragers are coming back and the foragers are showing, hey, look, we've got all this great stuff, and the brood pheromone is diminishing, these things in conjunction with each other will trigger swarming behavior, swarm cell development, because they know they're running out of space. Now, we've talked before about queen pheromone, of course, obviously how important it is and the distribution of it throughout the hive. We've talked about how getting a really, really large hive can sometimes impact the distribution of the queen pheromone because there's just so much space to cover. But that can also happen when you have a really, really dense population. When you have a very, very populated colony, that can also kind of impact how well that the pheromone, not that the pheromone isn't strong and present, it's just the distribution of it throughout the hive. So this is another thing that can kind of be a bit of a trigger. So when all these conditions are in place, we have to start coming up with a plan and a strategy. So I'm going to go through a couple of different things that are kind of common practice for what your options are, at this time of year. Option number one, pretty intuitive, give them space. You can add supers. I recommend, super early, super often, right? And again, using the term super as a verb versus a noun. So we are going to add a honey super by the process of, quote, supering. So put the honey supers on early. Another benefit or a bonus is, drawn comb, foundation that's been drawn into comb. A lot of people go to great lengths and efforts to have a surplus of drawn comb on hand. This is where it's great. If you can drop a honey super on that's completely drawn out, and those bees can go right to work with cleaning things up and then backfilling it, the acceptance of it, the use of it, it's going to be a piece of cake. Getting them to draw it is a bit more effort. But again, during a flow, they'll draw comb like crazy. But my issue that I have with foundation, like you hear me say a lot of times, like don't over encourage the drawing of comb. Storage. If you don't have a good place to store it and to keep it safe and to keep it away from wax moth and any other pests or varmints or anything, everything likes to mess with drawn comb. And like I said, once those wax moth get into it, I've got a nice video on YouTube you should check out with a nuke that I just threw into a trailer, and I opened it up and they were all over the place. Just big disaster. But there is definitely a difference between dropping a super roll that's completely drawn out and one that is just frames of foundation, because like we've talked about, many times, they may not see, even though you stick a box there and you see it and it's plenty of space, they may not necessarily see that as usable space or want to expand into that space. Now, another thing you can do too is if you've noticed that they've started to lay, let's say as an example, you're in the brood chamber and you're thinking, I'm going to go ahead and add a honey super. And then you look down into what normally is brood space and you see a lot of nectar, right? There's not as much brood, or there's no brood potentially. Go ahead and rotate those frames out, bring them up and out, and then drop, foundation or drawn comb or something back in its place. You drop something right in the middle of that brood box on a flow, they're going to draw it out pretty quick. But cleaning out any of that congested and contested space down in the brood chamber, get that out, put new stuff in, let them redraw it up. That's another way to kind of help manage that space. Now, my favorite thing to do is to go ahead and do a split. Go ahead and split the colony, when the conditions are optimal, like right now. I recommend doing it. There's a couple different ways that we could go about this. You could just say, look, you could walk away the whole thing, which literally is like divide it in half, walk away. Queen's in one side, they make a queen on the other side. What I prefer to do is keep everybody together, let them just continue down their development path, make a queen cell, and then right when that queen cell is either capped or about to be capped, that's where I do what I call a synthetic swarm. I basically take the queen, half the colony, move them somewhere else, leave the swarm cells behind. 10 days later, you have a new queen back in action and everything is fine. One way or another, you've got to do something to manage the space. I think it was Brother Adam a long time ago. Most problems or issues within a beehive can be addressed or taken care of by either adding to or taking something away from the hive. This is a great example. Add space or take away bees, and you have accomplished the goal of suppressing that swarm drive. Now, just because you do like this synthetic kind of swarm by splitting early, that doesn't mean you're out of the woods. That doesn't mean that, okay, cool, I'm good. I can start inspecting every 2 to 3 weeks and everything's fine. Swarm season done, checkbox, right? No. Like I said, they will do this over and over. They will just go. So you got to stay on top of things. Now, one thing that we're going to do, like I said, I mentioned about the idea of splitting, which is pretty obvious, giving them space. That's another one. But there's another method, and it's called the Demary method. And it is, I get a little frustrated with it because they call it the Demary split. It's not a split. The very definition of the word split is, you would do some kind of a division into two. I took a banana and I made a banana split. You divided the banana down the middle, you have 2 pieces of banana. I mean, like, you split a hive, you started with 1, you had 1 and 1 queen, you do a split, and now you have 2 and 2 queens. The Demary method of not splitting is basically dividing up the resources of the hive from the queen herself. And it's a fascinating approach and method. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just too lazy for it. There's too much work involved in it. I'm never going to do it. I may do it at some point in time if somebody's like, I really want to see it in a video. Okay, I may go ahead and do a video to be like, here's what it is, here's how you do it, have at it kind of thing. But I am going to dedicate an episode to it. So Monday, I'll release episode 143, and we're just going to talk about that method. Like I said, it's nothing personal against the method. I think it probably works really well. And again, keeping the entire colony intact has a huge impact on your honey production. So if honey production is your goal and you want to do this, It's not that it's a bad approach at all. So we're going to go through the whole thing beginning to end, and it might be something for you to consider. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some preventative kind of things that we need to do too. During swarm season, which is where we are right now for, I'd say, most of the country here in the U.S., you got to stay on top of those inspections. And we've talked about it, no more than 7 to 10 days. If you hit that 10-day point, you could very well do an inspection on a Saturday, come back, Wednesday, 10 days later, or Tuesday, whatever 10 days later is, and you could have either a capped or almost capped queen cell. It happens really, really quickly in the spring. And if you wait 2 weeks, you could put yourself in a real bind. Now, the next question with that, though, is I found queen cells. What do I do? I had somebody had messaged today on the YouTube channel, and they were like, well, wait a minute. If I destroy the queen cells, how do they swarm? And I said, well, no, the queen is going to leave with the swarm. And I think there was some confusion on that. They thought that the queen is going to stay behind and that the new queen will emerge and leave with the swarm, because they were saying, oh, will they swarm without her? So they were like, oh, crap, I saw queen cells. I destroyed them. I didn't know. So this is a really common thing that happens, because a lot of times it's from bad advice where someone says, oh, if you see queen cells, you got to get rid of those. Just destroy them right away. The answer to that one really is maybe. Like for me, if I see a queen cell, I don't care what's going on one way or another. I am trying to find a way to get that queen cell for myself. I love extra queens. If I can get that queen cell, handful of bees, get it into a mating nuke, let her emerge, have a spare queen. A spare free queen is like, that's just you hit the bonus round. So I'm going to try to get that out of there. But when you see swarm cells, you want to check and make sure, like, hey, are they still here? Has my queen actually left already? What's the population look like? Don't just run through and just start ripping out cells, because it's entirely possible they could have swarmed the day before. You open the hive and you're like, oh, what are these swarm cells doing here? You kill them all, and now you're completely hopelessly queenless. But like I said, once that cell is capped, they're usually getting ready to get cooking. Now, another thing that some people will do, and I would say that you're going to get kind of mixed results and reviews with this. I have done this before. I did it kind of earlier on. Sorry, I had to take a little pause. I'm being graced with the sound of a vomiting cat behind me. Anyway, I used to do this early on. I would reverse, like if I had 2 deeps, I would just reverse them in the spring. And the mindset was, well, bees are going to, like if you have the cavity and they start drawing comb down and they're filling resources all through the middle, and then they're working their way up in the winter. It's this seasonal up, down, up, down. And it was, well, if I just reverse those and I have the queen, just start her off in the season automatically down at the bottom, there'll be all this space up above, and surely that'll prevent them from swarming. It really doesn't. The queen has the ability to very effectively move up and down. So if they fill the space up top, she can just move down below. But I think the reason that I really would like to reverse them, if that were something that you chose to do, is one, if you're going with the single brood box configuration, she just happens to already be in the middle or on the top, go ahead and push it to the bottom, put a queen excluder in. Now you've got her isolated where you want her to be. But it's also, too, from an inspection standpoint, if you want to keep all your brood and everything down, by the bottom, they tend to, if you, again, looking at the cavity and looking inside the tree, brood tends to always be near the bottom and the middle. Honey surrounds that and ends up top. So I don't know. There's so much information out there, and people are like, well, you got to do this, you got to do that, you should do this, you should do that. Whenever you're wondering, should I be doing all this crazy stuff, just look at the tree. Just go back to the tree. Like, nobody climbs in, cracks the tree open and starts reversing things around and moving things around. The bees are going to take care of themselves. You treat them for varroa, give them space, let them do their thing. They're going to figure it out. They don't need you to be finding all these magical solutions that somebody came up with who wants to sell you a widget or wants to sell you something that they think is cool. Let the bees be bees. Okay, so on a quick little recap of a couple things here, like I said, having supers handy, ready to go. If you have drawn comb for them, you hit the bonus round. That's really great. Make sure you're keeping notes too. We've talked about this a lot lately, but I want you to make sure you're writing things down this year so you can look at them next year. If I look at my notes right now, I already know that by this time of year, we've already had swarms. like late March, early April, very normal to be getting swarms. It's just this recent, couple weeks of some just funky cold, wet, weird weather has kind of suppressed things a little bit, but swarms are going on. But having those notes that you can look at year after year is definitely a big deal. All right, so wrapping it all up here, swarms and swarming is a very normal thing. The bees don't hate you. They don't, you're not doing it to get revenge on you or anything like that. I really recommend if there's a way for you to keep those bees in your hive, they'll be happier. It'll be a stronger colony. They'll be more productive for you if you're trying to get honey. Really pay attention to the timing. Manage that space. Make sure there's plenty of brood space. Don't procrastinate. Stay on top of this. Inspect early, inspect often. Like I said, once every 7 to 10 days. Remember, next episode, 143, I'm recording that. I'll probably record today or this weekend, but that'll be out on Monday. We're going to talk all about the demerry method of not splitting. And like I said, check out the Beekeeping for Newbies homepage. We've got links for nuke plans, swarm trap plans, links to the bestbeekeepinggear.com site is on there, Discord room links. All that stuff is on there. So that is all I have for you today. Have a great weekend. Take care. Be kind to one another. And remember that I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. We'll talk to you soon.